Let's bring on Mike Davis. He's the founder of the Article 3 Project, also happens to be my colleague at the Article 3 Project. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. As we have finished closing arguments, we've gotten the jury instructions now, and now at this point, it's basically just a waiting game. You have been following this, just like me, throughout the entirety of this whole sordid Stalinist affair. What are your thoughts as we currently stand?
My thoughts have not changed. This is a partisan, corrupt, rigged process by this corrupt Democrat Manhattan judge who illegally donated to Biden's campaign. He got reprimanded for this several months ago. We just learned his daughter, Lauren Michon, is raising millions of dollars off of this unprecedented criminal trial of a former and likely future president, requiring Judge Merchan's recusal. He refused to recuse. Instead, he retaliated against Trump, threatened to throw Trump in jail with an unconstitutional, illegal gag order if Trump mentions Laura Michon or Trump mentions that Soros-funded Manhattan DA brought in this Biden political appointee, Matthew Colangelo, to resurrect this bogus zombie case against Trump. Trump can't talk about Stormy Daniels or Michael Cohen changing their story several times, raising money, trashing Trump online, but Trump can't respond. Cohen is their star witness. He's a serial perjurer, convicted felon. We learned he embezzled from Trump. Both Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen hate Trump. You have this jury pool, this Manhattan jury pool that voted 87% for Joe Biden, and Merchan and Colangelo and Brad further rigged the jury selection process by bouncing people who follow Trump on social media, the three people in Manhattan who follow Trump on Truth, but not bouncing people who follow Biden. So you have a rigged jury. And then we saw this Judge Merchan and Bragg and Colangelo further rig this by giving these unconstitutional jury instructions where they don't even have to unanimously find that Trump committed the second crime that Trump supposedly committed in furtherance of this supposed bookkeeping misdemeanor. It's not even a bookkeeping misdemeanor. They don't even have to unanimously agree as a jury what that second crime is. So 4 people can say it was a federal election crime, 4 people can say it was a New York election crime, and 4 people can say it was something else. Again, this is a partisan, corrupt, rigged process against President Trump. This is lawfare and election interference.
Yeah, so Mike, the point that I made in the opening monologue was that when Alvin Bragg first unveiled this indictment, these 34 counts over a year ago now, one of my very first thoughts, I'm sure one of your very first thoughts was, okay, well, this fraudulent bookkeeping charge has a 2-year statute of limitations. That told years ago. When are they actually going to tell us what the predicate offense is? When are they going to tell us what the in furtherance of something else is? And I've been waiting throughout this trial. I've been waiting. When is Bragg, Colangelo, all the rest of these clowns? When are they going to tell us what the actual offense is? And here we are waiting for a verdict, and they literally have not done so. I just find this so unbelievably astounding. And, cards on the table here, I generally tend to be favorable towards the prosecution. In fact, years ago, you and I have been friends for a while now, but I remember that when we first got drinks many years ago, you called me a caveman conservative because of my zeal for all things prosecution and throwing people in jail. And I say that because I, of all people, also am looking at this and saying, what the actual heck? What the actual heck? I mean, is this all that it takes to put a president in jail? So what is your actual prediction? I mean, you and I agree as to what should happen, but putting on your prediction hat, what do you think is going to happen?
I think this is so rigged against President Trump with this corrupt and partisan judge, these partisan prosecutors, and these rigged jury selection and these rigged jury instructions. I think they're going to find Trump guilty for this non-crime of a businessman settling a nuisance claim and putting it in his private books as a legal expense in his private books. I don't know what else you would call it other than a legal expense. I've been a lawyer for nearly 20 years. Apparently, I'm a felon because I've been settling these nuisance claims for business people and businesses for nearly 20 years, and they book it as a legal expense. And somehow booking it in your private books was somehow a bookkeeping misdemeanor related to business books. And somehow booking it in your books in 2017 in your private books somehow affected the 2016 presidential election. And then somehow that was a felony because you had a presidential candidate conspiring with others to try to win the election. And somehow that's a felony under this legal theory. Apparently, every every candidate for office in world history is now apparently felons because they tried to conspire to win the election.
All right, so let's assume the worst. Let's assume that what you said is right and that they're going to convict him. I mean, are they going to put him in handcuffs? Are they going to do the whole like Rikers Island orange jumpsuit thing? When is there going to be an appeal? Is there going to be an appeal before the election in November? Do we think it's kind of an expedited timeline for an appeal? I mean, talk us through how this actually looks if the jury does do what you predicted they would.
Well, I would say this. At best, there might be a hung jury, but I don't even think there's going to be a hung jury. But even if there is a hung jury, that just means that this corrupt partisan judge and these partisan prosecutors can just retry Trump immediately and keep him in that courtroom for another 3 months instead of the campaign trail. And so if they do find him guilty and this judge convicts, which I expect the judge to do, he could sentence Trump to prison. Now, there is a federal statute where the Secret Service is bound to protect former presidents for the rest of their lives. And so Judge Merchan is going to have to work with the Secret Service to put President Trump in a prison with his Secret Service detail for the rest of Trump's life, if that's where they're heading with this. But look, this is not going to fly with the American people. And this is where these Biden Democrats don't understand this. Trump's already going to win by like 2 points, according to current polling. If they convict him in New York under these bogus non-crimes, then I think Trump's going to win by like 4 points. If they try to throw Trump in prison, which I think Judge Merchan will do because he is so conflicted and his daughter, Lauren Merchan, is raising millions of dollars off of this unprecedented criminal prosecution that her father is presiding over. If he doesn't do this, he knows that the Biden Democrats are going to cut off Lauren Merchan as their leading campaign consultant and fundraiser. They're going to throw her to the wolves. And so I think that he may try to put Trump in prison. If he does that, Trump's going to win by like 6 points or more. It's going to be like Nelson Mandela. But even if this judge says, we're not going to put Trump in prison because of the logistics of the Secret Service, we're just going to put him in home confinement. And then he has to report to my New York courthouse once a week or twice a week for drug test and urine test and probation. They're going to try to keep President Trump off the campaign trail for the rest of this year.
Yeah, 100%. And that very much is one of their lead goals all along, as you and I both know. I mean, while Joe Biden is campaigning in Pennsylvania, Donald Trump is confined to this courtroom for the 5 days of the working week. So, Mike, in our remaining time, I want to switch gears a little bit here. Justice Sam Alito, who has been in the leftist crosshairs for a while now for these outrageous, these frankly just absurdly stupid stories about flags that he was flying both in his Virginia home, then his New Jersey beach home. They're very common flags. They say it's an insurrectionist symbol. So he took the step of actually writing a formal letter to Senate Judiciary Chairman Dick Durbin and the rest of Senate Democrats explaining why he's not going to recuse. Why don't you go ahead and just break that down for us? What are your thoughts on that?
He's absolutely right. Justice Alito should tell them to go to hell, frankly, because he is required not to recuse. The lower federal courts, the federal judges are interchangeable. And if there's an appearance of bias, you can just swap out another judge. With Supreme Court justices, they're not. There is a presumption that Supreme Court justices do not recuse because you do not what you do not want to happen, what the Senate Democrats and other Democrats, the New York Times are doing right now. They're trying to play games right now to get Alito to recuse because he's deciding 2 January 6 cases, the Trump case on presidential immunity and the Fisher case where the Biden Justice Department used the Enron obstruction of justice statutes for corporate fraud to go after Trump and their political enemies, the January 6 defendants. Justice Alito should not recuse. His wife flew an upside down distress American flag after one of their deranged neighbors had an F Trump sign in front of a school bus, and the neighbor called Mrs. Alito the C word. They're lucky that Mrs. Alito only flew the upside down distress flag after that instead of knocking their faces with her fist. And she also flew the Appeal to Heaven flag, the George Washington Revolutionary War flag that has flown across America for centuries, including by the city of San Francisco, not exactly MAGA supporters in the city of San Francisco. This is a bogus game that the Democrats are playing. And Jodi Kantor at the New York Times is a partisan shill for bringing these bogus stories against Justice Alito. If Justice Alito needs to recuse Jodi and Senate Democrats, why hasn't the Biden Justice Department asked for Justice Alito's recusal in the Fisher case and the Trump case? And the answer is they know that request would be legally frivolous and they'd probably get sanctioned.
Well, there you have it. Mike Davis, appreciate your time, brother.